Hello, you beautiful people. You might have known me as the Gaming Fur from our old channel, but since this is going to be Hammer Revived, we're going to be leaving that name in the past. So let's start from the top, shall we? Hello, all you beautiful people. I am Zmart. You can call me Zach if you'd like. So, VR gaming. It's always been a kind of enigma, hasn't it? Not too many partake in it, and those that do usually have such high-end systems they don't have to worry about stuff like their computer specs not being able to run their games. But you're not here to hear me talk about that. You're here to hear me talk about one of two things or both: the Oculus Rift S, budget gaming for VR, or both probably. To start off with the Oculus Rift S. It's an absolutely beautiful piece of technology and an overall 100% upgrade on the original Rift, except for I think a 10 hertz display difference from the S to the original Rift. The original Rift having 90 and the new one having 80. So taking a look at it, I have mine right here that I purchased just over a week or two ago. It's very comfortable. It's surprisingly good for a VR set because as a guy of my stature, I've got a large head that VR headsets usually don't fit too well on. The original Rift wasn't exactly the most comfortable thing. So on the inside of it, the foam padding, it's very, very comfortable to sit against your face for extended periods of time, which I was extremely surprised with because usually with extended hours of gameplay, stuff like my headphones will get fairly uncomfortable after a time because they'll make my ears cramp up. But I've had almost no complaints with the padding that goes around your face, except for the fact that it's not exactly the most breathable. If you sweat a lot during gaming, this could be a big downside for you. But for me, I had really no troubles with it. It got very troublesome after a lot of Beat Saber and a lot of Blade and Sorcery and games that were pretty intensive on you, which were basically a big workout. But other than that, playing stuff like VR Chat and other pretty harmless games, they were good experiences and had no sweat. It was completely comfortable and completely fine. Moving towards the back, we have this very nice adjustable dial that mostly, I mean, you just adjust it when it's on your head already. But when it's already on your head, you can finally adjust it to be able to fit your head so it will not come off, it won't move when you're shaking your head, moving your head, jumping around a bit. It stays on very well. And it's very easy to disengage as well. So it won't come off easily when you're playing your game, like it won't disengage, but when you go back and do turn it, it's like a tension lock pretty much. Moving to the tracking. So for the old Rift and stuff like the Vive, it would be good to have cameras to help track yourself, but you do not need cameras with this because it already comes with some built into the headset. The Rift S comes with two cameras in the front, one camera on the top, and one camera on each side on the bottom parts of it. They do an amazing job of tracking, as even when in somewhat low light, they could still track my controllers very well. But you will need a decent amount of light to be able to play if you are going to be playing in the dark still. Like you'll need like a lamp on in the corner, or maybe just your computer light would work, but you will need at least a little bit of light for the cameras to track. Other than that, the cameras can track extremely well. They'll track you all over the play area you make, and they'll just do an extremely amazing job tracking you in game, making you feel fairly immersed in the experience. So next thing, onto the controllers. This was going to be probably my biggest potential complaint because controllers have always been not too comfortable for me. So for a controller to be comfortable to me, it has to be able to fit my big hands. That's the reason why the PlayStation was never my console of choice. Is because the PlayStation 3 and 4 and all the other generations of it, the controllers were just too small. My hands completely engulfed the controllers. I just couldn't play right. Xbox did it well to a point where it was comfortable to hold. And that kind of goes the same with PC mice, which you can get different size, so you can get them adjustable and extended for some of them that make them fit my hand a bit better. But these controllers, they actually fit my hand very well. So to be able to hold these controllers really well, it's good to be able to have three fingers on the bottom without anything hanging off like I would with the PlayStation controller. And for the index finger button to be able to just sit right in the middle of my finger is just perfect, and it fits and is extremely comfortable to use for extended hours of gameplay. Other than that, I've got really nothing to say about the controllers. The strap stays on extremely well. The adjuster, it works. There's really nothing wrong with it. It feels kind of cheap because it'll slide off really easily, but it doesn't come off, so I've got really no complaints over that. So on to the next part before we move on to games. I want to go over the games that we're going to be showing off first. We're going to be showing off Beat Saber, Blade and Sorcery, and Onward. I was going to throw in VR Chat as that is a free VR game, but in the time I was taking to test some games out, what I could record wasn't exactly the best. Most people were spamming emotes and lagging my system, or there just wasn't enough going on to really test it and show what could happen on a server. I will be getting VR chat videos up on the channel soon, so you will be able to see exactly how well it runs on my system back here on budget systems like potentially yours. So stay tuned for those. So for the system that I'm running a Ryzen 5 2600 6-core 12-thread CPU, not overclocked at all, just a normal base clock, 16 gigabytes of RAM. That is a big one because that lets you be able to run everything extremely well, doesn't have it stutter too much with not being able to load assets such as in VR Chat, Blade and Sorcery, and other games like that that require a lot of memory to run. And I'm also using an RX 588 gigabyte XFX Black Edition. So that is on the fairly low end of graphics cards, but still very capable and still very budget. And I mostly am doing this so I can show you that some lower end cards can run, because not a lot of videos out there show how well VR runs on lower settings graphic card, or not lower setting, but lower cost graphics cards. A lot of people are running them on 1080 Ti's, 2080s, 2070s, stuff like that that are really, really meant to run on VR and like really hard running games. But no one really goes over the fact that you can still get a very viable experience from lower end tech. And that's what I'm really here to show you today. So before we get into the video game showcasing, I'd like to just say a word. So my webcam, it's going to be limited to 720p for right now. But after this video goes up and after a few more, once I'm able to get my rig fully done and fully set up, I'll be able to get a 1080p webcam so I can be able to record face footage while I'm doing my Let's Plays and other video games, and while I'm doing full body VR stuff, so you can see everything in high quality and be able to really tell what's going on without all the graininess of it. And also, before I get into the video games, I'd like to point out I'm not a pro at any of these. All the games that I'm about to show you, I'm just playing for fun, really, just to show them off. I'm not good in front of a camera, so don't expect anything too great out of any of these games. And also, one more thing. Last thing before we get into the games. OBS is what I'm currently using to record, and any bit of slowness could easily be attributed to OBS in itself for something like Beat Saber. But other than that, enjoy the footage. Beat Saber. The game runs extremely well on my system and I've had really no stutters or lags with it. It runs at the max hertz settings of 80 because, well, my monitor doesn't really get over 60, so it just kind of chills at the max that my Oculus can handle. I've got really no complaints with Beat Saber. It can run on pretty much any system out there. Even on long periods of gameplay, very intense bits and hard modes, it plays extremely well. It plays extremely smoothly for my system specs and could play well on yours depending on yours. It's a very fun experience overall if you do enjoy a good workout at times, or if you just enjoy jamming out to your music while constantly flailing your arms about. I can also attest that it's a lot of fun being able to play stuff like Crab Rave on the hardest difficulty and just being able to go ham on it. You can also implement your own custom music, but I still have not gotten around to that. But I will be getting around to that so I can upload videos of that soon. On to the next game. So the next game is going to be Blade and Sorcery, a medieval sword fighting game. So in parts of Blade and Sorcery, it can get a bit demanding whenever there's a lot of bodies and a lot of weapons and a lot of random things lying around your area, or if you're just in a big map. It can take off a lot of RAM and cause your game to stutter a bit. Other than that fact, the game can run fairly well depending on how you play. If you're constantly flailing your weapons around or constantly doing custom spells or doing custom mods that you have put into your game, it's not going to run too well. I wouldn't really recommend it for anything lower than an RX 588 gig, like a 570 or like a 480 or anything like that. I wouldn't really recommend it for stuff like that unless you really, really trust your system. But other than that, the game is a lot of fun. The physics are somewhat realistic, though not completely. Like a person swinging onto your sword, if it's just a little bit low, could chop their hand off or chop their head off if they're not careful. But other than that, it's got a decent amount of realism to it. You can dual wield and still be able to block and fight people off. Well, axes carry a lot of weight and momentum to them. You can't just swing around a claymore one-handed without it being extremely slow and extremely held back and extremely weak, and I really enjoy that. So on to the next game. So the next game I have for us is Onward, a military shooter game that is probably the most realistic game that you can get and one of the more intense games that you can get as well. So I really only showed off the shooting range as that was a good control to show how well the game runs, as multiplayer lobbies can be all kinds of hectic. Sometimes, I mean, might get a lot of kills, sometimes you might not get any. So I wanted to show off a good way to take a look at all the guns, run through a course just to show you how everything works, how everything runs and stuff like that. It's a lot of fun. I have played a decent bit of multiplayer. It gets really competitive at times. The guns work just how they should in real life, but there's really not much to say about it. If you're a fan of FPS games, I definitely recommend it. If you're a fan of, I don't know, Call of Duty, Counter-Strike, stuff like that, I highly recommend it for people that enjoy shooter games. So overall, the Oculus Rift S. It's $399. Would I recommend it to just about anyone? Maybe. If you have a computer that could run VR pretty well like mine, I definitely recommend it. It's a lot of fun, and I really expect to see VR technology and capabilities getting a lot higher and a lot better over the next few years, as the tech has only been out for a few right now. It's really only for if you have a decent amount of free time on your hands. Like I work full time now, so I was only able to enjoy it over the vacation that I just had and maybe on the occasional weekend or so. But if you're all right with spending $399 that you can't really take anywhere, go for it. If you don't have a computer like I do and you want to be able to play your VR on the go, like if you are constantly traveling or don't have the most highest budget for a gaming PC like I do, I recommend the Quest. The Quest is basically the Rift S, but just a slightly less capable, slightly less refresh rate on the in-headset monitor, and a bit less of a library for games, but you can still take it around. But overall, I really enjoyed the Rift S. It was one of my favorite purchases I've made for my computer yet, and probably will be my favorite purchase until I get a better graphics card, to be able to enjoy it better. Other than that, I thank you for tuning in on my first upload on the Hammer Gaming Revived channel. Hope to see you guys in the next one. Have a nice time.